we talk a lot in the industry about the one-page marketing plan and what that should include. But let's look at the one-page podcast strategy plan. I'm a company. I want to launch a podcast. I need to make sure the key elements are in place so we're all aligned in terms of what we're doing, why we're doing this, what success looks like. What would that one-page podcast strategic plan look like? What would need to be on it so that the C-suite and the marketing department and the sales department all aligned on how to move forward?
It will need to include the most basic things. How long are we going to do a podcast? At least 6 months. How many episodes can we produce? What is the simplest way to get started? Like Joe was talking about, that we don't go too hard into experimenting. Who's going to be producing it? How we're going to distribute that? Who has enough time to actually be on the podcast? If this format that we are defining right now, let's say we're doing an interview with guests, if this format doesn't work for some reason, it takes a little bit too long, what is the other format? What is the contingency option? Just given the fact that it may not work exactly the way you expect. The podcast concept may not work exactly as you expect. Is there something else we could do? But it's about the production. It's about the production requirements. It's the frequency. It's the theme of the show. It's the concept of the show. It is who's going to be a part of that, who's going to be producing it, what would the calendar look like, the key points of making it happen, and a timeline. How long are we going to spend before we get ready to launch? Then after we have launched, what we're going to do, what will be the set of actions, who's going to be doing them. Probably not going to fit on a one pager, but with AI, I think we probably should manage.
One absolutely critical thing to nail up front is the general and overarching theme. If you look at most B2B podcasts, this is where it really is missed. You want to be careful with a theme because you don't want to box yourself in too early. To Sergey's point, there's going to be experimentation. We might not just stick to one format. We might have to shift from an interview to something else. You don't want to make it too boxed in from day one. How I've always viewed the power of podcasts is a really good way to share your company's point of view and narrative, right? What you don't want a podcast to turn into is something where, particularly if it's an interview, where the guests just drive the narrative and the conversation, which is what a lot of podcasts turn into. I think being really clear up front about what's the overarching narrative and theme. If we are going to pick guests to come on, do they align with that like narrative and theme, right? I always think about that with our podcast video that we run for Sway. I'm not going to invite someone unless they clearly align with how we think about the industry and the types of topics we want to talk about. I think just being clear with that up front and not letting the podcast divert too far away from that clear theme. In my opinion, that's where it goes wrong with podcasting.